when pain becomes purpose, the revolutionary power of resilience. Have you ever wondered what happens in that moment when someone decides they've had enough? That precise instant when pain transforms into purpose, when the weight of tragedy becomes so unbearable that it forges something entirely new. I recently had the privilege of interviewing Sarita Johnson, an extraordinary woman whose life was forever altered by gun violence. But instead of becoming another statistic, another story of tragedy whispered about and then forgotten, she channeled her trauma into creating something revolutionary: bulletproof siding for buildings. Her journey from survivor to inventor isn't just inspiring, it's a masterclass in resilience that challenges everything we think we know about trauma and transformation. Sarita Johnson isn't just an inventor or entrepreneur. She's a revolutionary who looked at violence and responded not with more violence, but with protection, not with destruction, but with creation. In a world obsessed with retribution, she chose prevention. And in doing so, she may have changed the trajectory of community safety forever. The first time I heard Sarita speak about her invention, I was struck by the matter of fact way she described something so revolutionary. I just got tired of feeling helpless, she told me, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. So I decided to build something that would help others feel safe. That's it. No dramatic declaration, no theatrical moment of epiphany with swelling background music, just a quiet determination born from unimaginable pain. How many of us walk around carrying pain that we've never transformed? Pain that sits heavy in our chests, that wakes us up at night, that colors how we see the world. We're taught to endure it, to push through it, to hide it behind professional smiles and carefully crafted social media posts. We're experts at concealing our wounds, aren't we? Masters of the brave face. But what Sarita's story teaches us is that pain can be fuel. It can be the raw material from which we build solutions. It can be the catalyst for change that extends far beyond our own healing. When Sarita first began developing her bulletproof siding, she faced skepticism from every direction. Engineers told her it couldn't be done. Physics doesn't work that way, they said with condescending smiles. Investors told her there wasn't a market. Who's going to pay for that? They asked, as if safety were a luxury rather than a necessity. Friends and family worried she was fixating on her trauma rather than moving past it. The first prototype was a disaster, she admitted with a dry laugh during our interview. It was heavy enough to sink a battleship and about as attractive as a parking garage, but it stopped bullets. That's the thing about transformation. It's rarely pretty in its early stages. The butterfly doesn't emerge fully formed, it struggles through the messy process of metamorphosis first. The diamond doesn't start out brilliant, it endures crushing pressure in darkness. For Sarita, that process involved countless failed prototypes, depleted savings accounts, and doors slammed in her face. But with each rejection, her resolve only strengthened. Every no just reminded me why I started, she explained. Every time someone dismissed me, I thought about the communities living in fear, about the children who deserve to feel safe in their schools and churches. This is where Sarita's story diverges from the typical narrative of overcoming adversity. Her goal was never simply personal healing or success. From the beginning, her vision extended beyond herself to encompass entire communities, particularly those most vulnerable to gun violence. In several US cities, grassroots organizations led primarily by Black women have been fighting to retrofit community spaces with enhanced safety features. These women, many of whom have experienced gun violence firsthand or lost loved ones to it, face enormous challenges, limited funding, bureaucratic hurdles, and persistent skepticism about whether their efforts will make a difference. But like Sarita, they persist. They leverage crowdfunding platforms when traditional funding sources fail them. They build partnerships with local businesses for materials. They engage city officials through relentless advocacy. And slowly, painstakingly, they create change. Several churches and schools now feature upgraded security infrastructure because of these efforts. Community members report feeling safer during gatherings. The ripple effects extend beyond physical safety to include strength and trust between residents and local institutions. This is what empowerment through action looks like. Not just talking about problems, but creating solutions, not just identifying what's broken, but building something better. During our conversation, Sarita shared something that has stayed with me. Words without action are just noise, she said. And we've had enough noise. What we need are builders. I've been thinking about that statement ever since. In a world where we can broadcast our opinions to thousands with the tap of a screen, where outrage is currency and attention spans are short, how many of us move beyond words to action? How many of us transform our pain into purpose? The path from pain to purpose isn't linear or predictable. For Sarita, it involved engineering skills she didn't initially possess, business acumen she had to develop on the fly, and a resilience that was tested daily. I had to become a different person, she reflected. Not because I wanted to, but because what I wanted to create demanded it. That's another truth about transformation. It changes not just our circumstances, but ourselves. We cannot create external change without being changed internally in the process. For Black women like Sarita, this journey often includes additional layers of challenge. They must navigate systems that weren't designed with them in mind, overcome biases, both subtle and overt, and often do so without the safety nets or support networks that others take for granted. Yet, time and again, we see Black women at the forefront of innovation and community care, transforming pain into purpose, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. This isn't accidental. As Sarita explains, that when you exist at the intersection of multiple marginalized identities, you develop a unique perspective. You see solutions others miss because you've had to navigate problems they've never faced. That perspective is invaluable, not just for the individuals who possess it, but for society as a whole. Innovation doesn't come from comfortable places, it emerges from necessity, from friction, from the determination to create something better than what exists. Which brings me to perhaps the most powerful aspect of Sarita's story, her refusal to be defined by rejection. I stopped counting after the 100th no, she told me with a slight smile. At some point, rejection just became background noise. Think about that for a moment. How many of us abandon our ideas after the first rejection? How many potential solutions never materialize because someone told us our vision was impossible? Sarita's bulletproof siding might never have existed if she had listened to the chorus of doubters. The communities now protected by her innovation would still be vulnerable if she had allowed rejection to define her limits. Instead, she persisted. She refined her prototypes. She adjusted her pitch. She found new investors when the first ones declined. She built a team of believers when solo work became too much. And eventually, she succeeded. Today, Sarita's bulletproof siding is being installed in schools, churches, and community centers across the country. The technology she developed against all odds is now protecting thousands of people, many of whom will never know her name or story. That's another aspect of purpose driven work. It often extends far beyond our personal recognition or reward. Its impact ripples outward in ways we may never fully witness. So, What can we learn from Sarita's journey? How do we apply these lessons to our own lives, regardless of our specific circumstances? First, we must recognize that pain, while never invited or deserved, can become a powerful catalyst for change when channeled purposefully. This doesn't mean we should romanticize suffering or suggest that trauma is necessary for transformation. Rather, it means acknowledging that our deepest wounds sometimes reveal our most profound purposes. Second, we must understand that empowerment comes through action, not just any action, but strategic, persistent effort directed toward concrete solutions. Words matter, awareness matters, but without corresponding action, they remain incomplete. Third, we must develop resilience in the face of rejection. This doesn't mean ignoring valid criticism or failing to adapt our approaches. It means distinguishing between constructive feedback and dismissive rejection, between temporary setbacks and terminal failures. And finally, we must recognize the unique value of diverse perspectives in solving complex problems. The very experiences that marginalize certain groups also equip them with insights and innovations that benefit everyone. As I reflect on my conversation with Sarita Johnson, I'm struck by how ordinary she considers herself. Despite creating a revolutionary product, despite overcoming enormous obstacles, despite literally saving lives through her work, she sees herself simply as someone who refused to remain helpless in the face of pain. I'm not special, she insisted toward the end of our interview. I just decided that if I couldn't change what happened to me, I would change what happens next. Here's my challenge to you today. Stop waiting for permission to transform your pain. Stop waiting for someone else to build the solution you know is needed. Stop accepting no as the final answer when you know your vision has value. The world doesn't need more spectators commenting from the sidelines. It needs more Saritas, people with the courage to convert their deepest wounds into their most powerful work. Your pain is not just something to endure. It's not just a chapter in your story. It could be the foundation of your purpose. It could be the beginning of a revolution. What will you build from yours?